Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Finance Review Group meeting on the 30th of October. Please note that it is intended to live stream tonight's meeting of the Scrutiny Finance Group. However, due to the ongoing technical issues, this may not be successful. If successful, a recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. The induction loop system is now operative. Members and officers, please remember to switch your microphones on, speak directly into the microphone, and switch off again after speaking. Reporting officers using Teams, please switch cameras on when addressing the committee and switch off again after speaking. And please use the hands up icon to indicate questions and comments, and I will invite you to speak. Any exempt or private items on the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into the private. There may be a short delay. So moving on to the agenda items for today. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Raja, who has been substituted by Councillor Chowdhury. Which is from Councillor Hussain as well, Chair.
Okay, thank you. The minutes are before you. Do you all approve from the last meeting? Yep, thank you. So that's approved. Do we have any disclosure of interest for any items in today's meeting?
None that been made aware of, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And no urgent business?
None, Chair.
Thank you. No announcements?
None, Chair.
Okay, thank you. We move on to the finance update from Dev.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. So last time we reported the Q1, where we were showing a net deficit of 6.5. So we're working on Q2, but I can give you some early indication because we've just finished September. So we've produced some early figures, but that coming to executive in December. So the next FRG, I will bring a copy of the Q2, even if it's in draft form. And the latest figures are showing that 6.5 has gone down to 5.7. So there has been an improvement of nearly 1.4 million, and hopefully it's moving in the right direction. We're working on the deficit recovery plan, and those plan we aim for those plans to reduce the deficit even further. As mentioned, as part of Q2, we've got around 3 to 4 million of contingency. These are specific contingency which every year we have in the budget, like general contingency for the unknown. But at this stage, we are not releasing those contingencies, and we are not going to release those even for Q2 to hit the deficit recovery plan to make an impact reducing that deficit. But the areas where the demand-led services, and we've got in terms of areas of commercial income, and those are quite reflect the macroeconomic factors in terms of cost of living, increase in interest rate. So those are the things which are proving a bit of a challenge. But that's the aim. So these are figures which are not formal and official, but just wanted to give you that hopefully it's moving in the right direction. So it's coming to, I think, December executive. Yeah. But if the FRG, I don't know what the next FRG, close to FRG, I'll bring that report as well. Q2 is important because Q2, we are going to use Q2 in order to prepare the 24-25 budget as well. So it's very important to make sure we get it as robust as possible, even if we are 6 months down the line for the year end. So that's Chair for the time being, but I just wanted to sort of brief where we are and the direction of travel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dev. Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that, Dev. You may have said so, and I missed it, but is that revision as a result of you looking at the Q2 results?
The Q2, yeah. So Q2, we finished in September. Now we are sort of within 3 weeks, we try to produce the first cut of data, and first cut of data would still draft going through the review and process of reassurance. It's showing that there has been a sort of a downside in terms of the trajectory of the spend. There's quite upside on the corporate side as well. So that's what we are finalizing, and we'll hopefully bring it sort of to a FRG at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Any comments? Thank you. And the recommendation is to note the report. We all happy to do that? Yep, plenty of notes. Thank you. That's all done. Moving on to agenda item 9, which is the again an update on the progress in achieving the auditor's sign-offs from Dev.
Okay, so I think we discussed quite in detail last time. So what I would like to update members on 18-19 position. So last time we said we were very close to signing off the accounts, and then quite lately auditors have brought 2 new points to our attention. I couldn't deal with those because I was 2 weeks on holiday. So when I came back, the first thing myself and Robin, we are looking at those 2 points, and that we are submitting whatever those 2 points have been raised lately. And I hope to update members on those points once we've submitted to auditors, in fact, today. So our response, but still it was a draft. So at this stage, it was their draft audit report. So we were looking at the drafts. It's not the final, but there's 2 points which we have not discussed previously. One is something which you've discussed, but you have to update, like going concern. So as I've mentioned to members, every time there's a delay in signing the accounts, you have to do what's called post-balance sheet event. So we have to look at the next 15 to 18 months. So if the accounts were signed off, let's say by March, then you look up to the next December. If the account's signed by June, you have to. Now the accounts are being, our aim is to sign it October, so you have to look further. So the more there's slight delay, the further you have to look in the 18 months. So that's a bit which we are updating to look at the going concern and what we could post-balance sheet event, what happened after the balance sheet date. Now to remember the balance sheet date now, we're talking about 34 March 2019, but you have to reflect the 18 months from now. So it's quite, yeah. So, but we are doing it because that's what the accounting says. We are doing that. And there's another issue which have been raised in terms of some intercompany balances, which needs to be substantiated. So those are the things which is, as I said, is draft. So I just wanted to make sure members are aware, but we are going through the process to provide those information. And the rest of the things which have been included in the draft report are, by and large, have already been discussed at audit committee. So, but I don't want to go into too much detail because that was a draft. So it's a draft which still we have responded. So that's where we are. Hopefully, when we discuss this with Robin is off for a week now. So once Robin is come back, we'll till by that time UI has got our response and they will be able to come back to us on that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dev. Councillor Franks.
Yeah, 2 questions, Dev, please. First of all, I'm getting the feeling that Ernst & Young don't want to sign these accounts off for their own reasons, which is why it's dragged on as long as it has. So you might want to comment on that, or perhaps you'd rather not. The other question is the government fairly recently issued some guidelines or regulations about what happens with auditors unable to sign off accounts, and I can't remember what that ruling was. Will it apply to this situation, and what's the implication, please?
Yeah, so the first question, as a professional point of view, I want to comment on that. What Ernst & Young is, but we're working with Ernst & Young. The second is, I think all in all, there's, I think, I can't remember now, 900 accounts have not been signed. So there's 500, which is very old. So some date back, even some council 17, 18. And the main issue here is there are certain accounts are very technical. So some council like us, very technical, yeah, in terms of valuation and big numbers. And a lot of council in this situation, very technical things, even infrastructure assets, some council account is being signed now. because government has recognized that infrastructure asset is a technical thing which a lot of council struggle. So now government has given some sort of dispensation. So some accounts are being signed now. So in terms of completing those audits, government has acknowledged that there's a lack of capacity within the audit firm, a serious lack of capacity. So even if government extend, audit firm won't be able to complete all those. So what government will come as regulation, this will be in the law. So the guidance has come out, but that will become legislation, has provided an extension for the auditors to sign the account. I think 1920 by end of December, and then there's extension, but still with that extension, government acknowledged that it will still be a struggle to complete those audits. So what government has acknowledged that to say what is more important is the latest accounts. So that give a more current picture of where the council position. And what government says, if some council accounts are to 3 or 4 years, like I take Luton, 3 or 4 years. So 18, 19, as I said, those cross-stretch would be very close to that. But 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, that might be within the guidance from central government to say, auditors try to disclaim, to say we don't have time, and then concentrate on more recent, which is 22, 23. So, but these are guidance. We haven't seen the regulation, and when we see the regulation, which is the final regulation, and how much extension the government has provided council and audit firm to get those accounts signed off, then EY will give us how they will deal with this backlog. So, and quite rightly, I think if somebody would like to know what is the council latest performance or position, we'll be looking at 22, 23, and 23, 24, which I just gave you on the Q1. So those are things much more relevant, but still there is a process by which if auditors are saying we don't have time to disclaim it, that disclaimer won't necessarily have an impact in the opening balances. How that legislation and how the guidance will work, and that's the National Audit Office and SIPFA and the government is working, so that this is as clear as possible. So coming back to our case, 1819 is important. That's we were working towards getting it done. 1920, the audit was practically complete. So whether we can meet the deadline depends when the government deadline is finally. But 2122, 2021 and 2122 probably will be caught into this where auditors will say we rather move on 2223. But that's finally the auditors will decide, because it's very much on them, the audit planning, and they will tell us. So sooner rather than later, once the government publishes the legislation and give the clear deadline and the guidance how we deal with the backlog, then I will be able to update the audit committee and FRG where we are on that. So yeah, but 22-23 is something, the deadline for 22-23 I think is March 24. So we've got between now and March, not March 24 is beyond that. So I think it's around December, but I will send the dates, yeah. So we've got, I think, enough time based on the new legislation to work on 22-23. So we are prioritizing 22-23, which so we're working on that. Hope that auditors will look at 22-23 and 23-24. That is our new auditors, which are Grant Thornton, that they are the 23-24 auditors.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As I understand that, then you still are awaiting the final regulations and guidance from the government. When it's just that the whole thing is becoming more and more complicated as longer we go on. I think when those regulations and the guidance are actually available, could we have a written report on it, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Chowdhury.
Deb, do we incur any penalties for late submissions if we've got yet to submit or finalise 4 to 5 years of accounts? still? Are there any penalties attached?
I know private companies, if you're late, you've got late filing penalties. So I'm sure that's why you're asking the question. Yeah, for the council, local government, no. But what we have to do, we have to publish a notice in our website to give the reason why if there's a delay. Because it's always when council get published, we put a public notice to the council there, members of the public can look at it, but we don't have. I think going forward, although the current legislation, does it say is mandatory to publish the account by such and such date and get it audited? But my understanding is going forward, it will become a bit more mandatory and there will be much more responsibility on Section 151 officer to make sure it's done. And then at the same time to make sure audit firm are properly resourced. And you will see when I bring a paper shortly about the audit fees for 23-24, based on the latest audit appointment, it's nearly more than double now. So there is an acknowledgement from central government that especially councils like Luton, very complex, unitary authorities, group accounts, we fall under that like big London boroughs. So the fees and the scale of fees and charges has gone significantly up, and we don't. It's auditors get approved by PSAA, public sector audit appointment, but the scale itself, there's an acknowledgement of government. If you don't properly resource and you don't properly, then there won't be interest from audit firm. So I think that's the way government is driving, properly resource a system, properly resource local government as well, get good finance people, and then try to implement that deadline. But still, no, there isn't any late penalty charges. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dev. Any other questions or comments? I believe the recommendation is to note.
Yeah.
So we note the report, and also there is a task as well.
Yeah. Sorry, as well as the tonight report, be a written report on the once we've received the guidance and regulations from the central government.
Thank you. So we're all happy with the recommendation. Thank you. So that's duly noted, and we move on to agenda item 10, which is the Treasury's Management Annual Report, year ended 31st of March 2023.
Thank you, Chair. That's for me to talk on. Good evening, everybody. This is John Chance. I'm Chief Accountant. This is a Treasury Management Annual Report for the year ended 31st of March 2023, which we're duty bound to do by legislation, which is part of the background in the report. There's three chief areas that this covers. The capital spend position for that financial year 22-23, the impact on our capital financing requirement, and the impact on our borrowing arrangements. So that's the first point. Secondly, then there's the prudential indicators, which are listed within Appendix A and Appendix B in the report, and we come within the boundaries and the targets that have been set. So there's no alarm around adhering to the prudential indicators. And then finally, there's a bit of backdrop from our Treasury Management Advisors, Arlene Close, around the financial outlook, economic position, namely around interest rates and expected changes into the future going forward to September 2026. So the report is fairly brief and succinct, covering general fund and housing revenue account capital expenditure and the impact on our borrowing arrangements and, as I say, capital financing requirements. It's a fairly brief report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, John. Questions? Councillor Franks?
Yeah, I've only got one, actually. It's a very clear report, and I thank you very much for it. I recall that as a result of COVID and the airport situation and a whole load of other things, the government gave authorisation for capitalisation of some revenue expenditure. I think from memory the figure was £30 million. First of all, did the council actually take advantage of that, and to what extent? And secondly, just remind me whether it's actually referring to the current year's accounts or whether it's the year that we're looking at the Treasury Management Report for.
Okay, that's probably
John.
one best for Dev, yeah, on that one.
John, yeah, okay, I'll take that. So this is referring to the 6 months. So I think this is, if you look at here, it says for the year 31st of March 2023. So this is for the year which have just passed. Coming back to your point, when we were hit by the pandemic, so straight away in that year, we were expecting give and take around sort of 19 or 20 million of dividend. Plus there was dividend which was already due for, I think, 1920 when we hit the pandemic in March 2020. And that was the airport says, because of the pandemic at that time, we didn't know how deep it's going to be. So it was prudent for the airport to say, we won't be able to repay those dividends. So we did apply for a capitalization directive. And in fact, what was approved by central government was in the region of 49 million. But at the same time, the council took a sort of quite decisive action to prepare an emergency budget. And with members that went through the process, and I think within 3 months, we wrote an emergency budget in order to deal with the loss of dividend the in-year. So by doing that, then we stabilized not only the council, but the airport as well, because we had an stabilization plan. So the good news by bringing the emergency budget and try to have a budget which is more affordable, taking account 20 million out, and members are aware with what to FRG and everything, the emergency budget, is we already put in place for that year when we hit the pandemic an affordable budget without dividend. And since then, we have not been using dividend in order to balance our budget. So part of your question, how much we've used, we used just 15 million, 15. So we didn't draw down the whole 49 million because we brought an emergency budget ASAP and we reduced the revenue cost and increase income in order to have a balanced budget ASAP. So we don't need that directive. Capitalization directive, the directive was for 1920 and 2021, so it lapsed now. So even if you go back to it lapsed. It was for those 2 years where we said mainly because of the dividend loss, but we stabilized the whole system. And now airport is recovering well. The income is slightly above what we were expecting. Passenger numbers is catching up. So hopefully that's yeah. So hope that answers your question, Councillor Frank.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Oh, sorry.
Just one quick one. On page 15, the report is referring to the Public Works Loan Board as one of the sources of capital. We've used them a lot in the past, I understand that. Can you just tell me the extent to which the Public Works Loan Board is still making money available to us as a council, and how we've been affected by all the changes of interest rates? Because I know it used to be hugely preferable for us.
John, do you want me to take that?
Yes, please, Deb, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. But it's John report, so I will try to just help him here. Yeah, so when we embark in terms of borrowing, we always explore all the options. Yeah, so we do explore when we are borrowing for the DART, we explore whether we can issue bond, borrowing from European Investment Bank. So we always explore all the options. But PWLB is the easiest option. So we pick up a phone and we get it. However, lately, the government has tightened the rules now. Before you borrow from PWLB, you need to have a capital strategy and your capital program. So at the beginning of the year, they will ask us, how much do you want to borrow and where are the capital program? So it's very strict now, the capital strategy. So PWLB, when you apply to DMO, which is basically HM Treasury, they will look at your capital program. And there are a lot of things which I have to sign as Section 151 officer to say where those capital program borrowing fits in. So if I say I would like to borrow 10 million because I want to invest in a shopping center or whatever. You won't get shopping center with 10 million, but just being hypothetical, that is not allowed under the new regime now. So if you invest purely for the sake of yield, which was something allowed in years, but now if you invest purely for the sake of yield, you can't. So I have to make sure and that's what we do when we bring this report to the council, we lay the capital program and we clearly says we are investing for regeneration, town regeneration, like when we're talking about the estate, is housing. So there should be service need. And you do that and your capital strategy get approved by the council, your capital program approved by the council and by DMO. So they go through, they will look at it, challenge it. Once you get approved, then throughout the year, you can draw down up to the limit, which is approved by the council and agreed by central government through DMO. So the system has been tightened. There's much more control in terms of for the purpose for which you're borrowing. So in our capital program, you will see there's some loans. So the DART, the airport is, and government understand is not just a local infrastructure, it's a national infrastructure. That's what SIFA said in this report. So those are the things we clearly say why you are borrowing. Yeah, so it's still in the current economic climate. Yes, there's much more, I would say, oversight, but the control in terms of borrowing is still regulated by the prudential code. So the council saying there's a proper business case, it's prudent to borrow, and there's a way how you will repay those loans, then the government won't intervene, but you will need to have that approval where you're borrowing, where you're spending your capital program. So yeah, it's still, and PW is still cheaper than borrowing. But one of the things with PWLP, you have to borrow on the day, basically. So you can't say, I'll borrow today and fix the rate for 6 months, like forward borrowing. You can do it on structured product, like if you're going to borrow from a pension fund, or you can borrow from issuing bond, you can do that. So there's a place to do those things. If you look at your income profile and you say better not fix the rate now, but fix the rate in 5 years' time, so you do a structured product. But by and large, we explore all these things, and most borrowing, if not all borrowing, is from PWLP. We do borrow on short term from local government as well. We do borrow because local government others going. We do sometimes we excess cash, we do lend to local government, but those are short term. The long term one so far is PWLP. Sorry, it's a long answer, but it's a complex subject. I wanted to give you quite a brief, quite a detailed answer.
Oh, thank you. I don't mind it being a long answer as long as I end up understanding better. So I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Begum.
Yeah, just a comment really, or well, yeah, kind of like a comment. So this is for John. On page 15, you know where you've got your closing balances for 21-22 at the bottom, where you've got the actual figures for CFR housing revenue accounts. Those figures don't quite add up, unless I'm doing my maths wrong. Just wanted to point it out to you. That was all.
Oh, thank you, Councillor. I will have a closer look at that. This report is going to exec, so I'll make sure that they all tie up. They ought to, because we've got the general fund in the first section. We're looking at the paragraph 12 here, aren't we? I've got the report in isolation.
Yep, 13.
Yeah.
13.
Okay. Yeah, I will certainly check that, and thank you for alerting me to that. I will have a closer look.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? The recommendation is to note the report. Are we all happy to note it? Yep, thank you. We move over to item number 11, which is the work program for 2023 and 2024.
Thank you, Chair. Members have before them the current work programme for the remainder of the year, and also a copy of the current forward plan. So it's an opportunity for members to, if there's anything on the forward plan that's not on the work programme, that they can add. So now's their opportunity to do so.
Councillor Franks.
Yeah, thanks. There were two items here that I think we might want to look at. On page 38, the second item down, which is the stage REBA 2 update, due to go to executive on the 29th of January. I thought that could come to our 25th of January meeting. And on the next page, 39, employment and skills strategy, that could well fit onto our 29th of Feb agenda, but somebody may well decide that it ought more appropriately to go to OSB rather than to us. It's so critical to solving so many of the problems that the town has that I think it's something that Scrutiny ought to look at, whether it's us or OSB.
I'll have a word with my colleague and see if it can go to overview and Scrutiny board and we'll see what it entails, which best fit. That's okay.
Any others? Input? Nope.
Just need to move into private.
Okay, sure. So we now move